You're tuned in to the Data Masters podcast. In each episode, we dissect the complexities of data management and discuss the data strategies that fuel innovation, growth, and efficiency. We speak with industry leaders who share how their modern approaches to data management help their organizations succeed. Let's dive straight into today's episode with Anthony Dayton.
Welcome back to Data Masters. Typically on this show, we talk about data, its value and the challenges associated with it. But today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to zoom in on the 0 to 1 journey for startups in general. I wanted to explore what it takes to bring a product from concept on a napkin all the way to working MVP and eventually establishing that ever elusive product market fit. How do you get started? How do you avoid fatal missteps that kill startups early? And what does it really mean to have a builder's mindset? Joining me to dissect this is Martin Miller. Martin is a true veteran of the software industry who has seen this life cycle from many and every angle. He's currently the CTO of mVision and the CTO of FastCTO and the host of Unriveted podcast. His background is incredibly diverse. He's served as the global director of AI and machine learning at Levi Strauss. He's founded companies like GoBeam and Cashion, and he's acted as a fractional CTO for many different startups. To give you a sense for his range, Martin didn't just write code for SaaS platforms. He actually built the bicycle computers used by riders in the Tour de France. And I might add, used by me. Yes, exactly. When I was a bike rider, or still am a bike rider. He understands the grit required to get a product out the door. Martin, welcome to the show.
Wow. I'm humbled by the introduction, Anthony. Thank you for having me here to embarrass myself.
We will see what we can do. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, you do have a very varied background, but fundamentally at its core, you're, to use your words, a builder, whether that's, as you showed, the hardware for a bike computer or modern AI software. So I wanted to dig into this question of 0 to 1. When you start with just an idea, hopefully written on a napkin. So when you've seen people, maybe they're not even a company yet, but when you've seen people with just an idea, what's the very first thing you should do when you have like that idea, when you're really at the, very much the idea stage?
Great question. And I am an advisor to several startups. Question 0, for somebody who wants to go off and try to figure out how they're going to make the next company that blows up, answer a few simple questions to yourself. Have you asked anyone else, is this a problem they need to have solved? Is this something they would spend money on? Kind of a key question. Does this bring value to other people's lives? Really simple questions. And did you reflect it outside of your own mirror? Because it's easy to say yes to yourself.
Yeah, and so just to challenge you a little bit there is this belief, and I've heard this before, it's like scratch your own itch, like find something that's a pain for you, something that's upsetting for yourself. And, if you build something that you think is cool, then other people will find it to be cool and interesting. And to make matters worse, and I think this is a common delusion in VC investing and other places, is there's a bit of survivor bias, right? There are lots of examples of startups where when interviewed later, the founder was like, well, I had this problem and I thought, for me, this would be really cool. So I built this thing and now it's the next big thing. How do you think about that?
Well, I reflect back on experiential learning, and also I agree with, like, if there's a problem I have and I can see I want to solve it, but does anybody else want to solve this? And do other people agree that there could be a monetary gain in solving it? Let me step back a little bit. I'm going to reflect back. I'm going to go back in the dinosaur years. I'll try to see if I get the right company names involved. We all know of Apple going from maybe you don't recall because of your lineage and in your age. Sorry, I had to use the A word. But Apple to Apple II, and then we got what was the Lisa, then the Mac, and the operating system changes between those. So I had the fortune of working on some early operating systems with visual interfaces, and being a recipient of using and developing for them, including the Lisa, something called from a company called Digital Research. I'm forgetting what the OS was called, but it was way cooler than the OS on the Apple at the time. That one failed, but it was really much better at the time. It's hard to believe that. There was another interesting company not too far after that kind of goes in nautical terms, as in think of Commodore, Amiga, and think about what do we think of the Commodore Amiga today, and look at the operating system and the visual interface. They were really superior to anything Apple had at the time, but look who the winner ended up being, even today. That's an interesting way to think about it. And so now step out and go, just because it's cool doesn't mean people will buy it. It could be really cool. It can be the best engineered anything. But if people don't buy it, how are you going to move forward?
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point, and something that I often say both to myself and then to our earlier conversation to people who are starting something. And it gets to a point you made at the beginning, which was go ask somebody else whether this is a pain and a problem they have. And I think that's obviously very good advice. But the follow-up question should be, and are you willing to give me not just like theoretical money, but actually your money for this thing? Like, are you willing to in fact pay for it? And then obviously, like, how much are you willing to pay for it? Is this a problem that costs you $1, or is this a problem that costs you $100,000? What's the power in this question, in your view?
Well, first of all, it's the ultimate question if you really want to think about it. Let me give you a couple quick stories of wind back early .com era, all kinds of solutions, people building, picks and shovels for the .com era, the tooling and et cetera. Those people still are around for the most part today in various forms, acquired or not. And they were building something that was solving a problem that helped solve other problems, which was infrastructural, and leads us to where we are in modern software development today. And so will people buy it? If they can monetize, make money on it, optimize, and make it into a cash register machine for themselves, then there's a clear equation. If they cannot make it into a cash register, ringing machine, it's difficult to spend. And the number of advisory roles I had for VCs that talked about companies that were really cool, and we went in to do due diligence, and we've got 25 customers or 50. What, inflate any zero after that number? And then you dig in 2 steps, literally. Can we talk to some of your customers? Oh, sure. Here's Bill. Oh, Bill's your brother-in-law. Great, perfect. So you get to Bill. Hey, Bill. We see John has marked you as a customer. You want to talk to us about your journey into using the solution, et cetera. Oh, it's great. It's the best thing since sliced bread. We really love it. We're built to roll with this. And then the next question is, so how much are you paying for this? And then the response, total dead silence. We're not paying for this. He gave it to us. Key point. So a lot of referential customers turned out to be non-paying users or potential testers of software or solutions. So if no one's paying for it, that's a clue. That's a huge clue that maybe you're solving a problem that doesn't yet have a market.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think there's also the tendency when you ask people for perspective and advice is to give, shocker, perspective and advice. They want to be helpful. There's a big difference. But so if you ask me my opinion on anything, I will give it to you. If you ask me for money, well, that's a whole different conversation, right? Now we're really going to get into it. And I'm very comfortable saying no to spending money whereas I'm very comfortable giving free advice. But look, Martin, selling stuff is hard. It's really hard asking people for money. So my dream as a founder is to just build cool technology, and then people will just show up at my website and then download the product and buy it using their credit card, and I will then not have to talk to anybody. So this, I joke, but like this is the dream, right? I feel like every technical founder I've ever engaged with has this dream of, if you build it, they will come. Like, we're just going to create cool technology. It's going to be so cool, in fact, that people will just buy it. They're going to show up and buy it. So talk to me about this delusion, because I clearly need some counseling.
So there is a case where that does work, but it's in a fraction of the cases of people attempting to make that work. And what makes one stand out while the others fail? Well, there's several elements. Yes, you may be all selling the same cup of water or bottled water, except one has a following and a social media presence and a little promotional capability. They don't rely on just you find it, maybe they'll come and buy it, right? That approach doesn't work very well. People have to know you're there. Why do they know you're there? Well, maybe people are talking about your product or service. If no one's talking about it, how are you going to find out about it? Are you going to randomly do I'll say it, a Google search for it? Good luck. You're going to get a bunch of sponsored results, plus the AI prompt. You want us to dig deeper? Oh, sure, please dig deeper. But that's not the right answer. Definitely not the right answer. So you can hope to get money that way, but hope is not a great strategy. And there's a book on that too.
A book on
selling. Sorry, there's a book on talking about building up a sales structure and team, but it's not a hope strategy.
Yeah, it's got to be built with intention. No, I couldn't agree more. I think the challenge of the "if you build it, they will come" type strategy is, I think, to your point, it is a vanishingly small percentage. In fact, I might even argue zero, if we're being sort of brutally honest. So, and betting on being the 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 that ends up in this virtuous cycle where people just show up and buy your stuff. Like, great. Like, if you win the lottery, you could also bet on winning the lottery. It turns out not to be a great way to build a startup.
I have a great segue on winning the lottery. I invested in a couple mini Bitcoin mining devices that, basically the size of a credit card, and they cost about $2 a year to run, and they're running in the next room just for entertainment value alone. And I tell my kids, this is my lottery ticket.
You're hoping to be the one who mints one of the blockchain and get the big prize. Got it.
Absolutely, with no computational power whatsoever to do it. It's more the humor of doing it.
Fair enough. Good. So it does also feel a bit like the barriers to entry on doing a startup have fallen a bit. Anyone can fire up Cursor or even put Claude code into VS Code and Vibe code anything these days. I'm curious in your both experience with this, and again, as a CTO, maybe we're at the end of at the end of the road. Like, soon we're not going to need any people. We're just going to sort of vibe code every possible startup. But talk to me a little bit about what vibe coding means in your world, and have we moved to a point of zero marginal cost for the next startup, because anyone can just vibe code themselves as a startup?
So I'm not here to naysay vibe coding, but I'll say the following. It could be a great kickstart for generating an interface so you can test it and see, hey, this is interesting, and keep going. And you can modify it a little bit and then share it and have people check it out. I think the magic isn't so much that, which is kind of cool. That has lowered the bar for maybe some simple, I don't want to say UX, but some simple UI generation for people. And you lower the bar for needing to have any specific like information on HTML, CSS, JavaScript understanding to do it, which is probably one of the interesting pieces that you cut out the middleman or middle person, excuse me, in the process of doing something just for testing visually. But those skills I just mentioned, even though they're not in the rocket science category, they build up to rocket science when you get to things that are user experience that work like magic. And in the world of let's just take computer science, there's many patterns of working, design patterns. There's literally books on design patterns, or in software engineering, there's software algorithm books. And teaching a large language model all these methods and procedural ways of operating is cookie cutter, and that what feeds into what could be now your vibe coding. That is straightforward. That is magic and great, and I'll fall for that. What that does do is allow somebody that is a subject matter expert in some area to maybe take something a little further than they expected and maybe get to that handoff point. So I'm for vibe coding. Where it falls off is in maintenance mode and future proofing and structural refactoring. That's where we break it up a little bit. So it's not like the one vibe coding method works for all things, but you can get puzzle pieces done really well if you know what you're doing. Remember that.
Yeah. So I haven't heard this distinction between vibe coding, or maybe vibe creating, to frame it slightly differently, and vibe maintaining. So share with me a little bit what you see as that distinction, and
Sure.
And is it your view that vibe maintaining is a non-starter? So if you get that right?
I wouldn't call it a non-starter, but what I like to do is frame it up a little bit. When you create a solution, you want to have a way of recreating that solution and redeploying that solution. That solution is running on some device somewhere, whether it's a cloud system or a physical system in your home or in a rack somewhere in the universe. And you want to be able to deploy it one time only or 1,000 times only. Is it scaling? So you need to commit it to effectively to the library, which is the software repo. And that software repo is holding all the code that builds up that software and service that you just vibed in there. And that's the creation side. That's great. Now you want to maintain it. Now you're getting into the world of real software engineering, software development, and the core of where expertise actually does matter. So you can use what's behind vibe coding, the large language model piece, and you pull that into your IDE as a plugin. Also, it's the same deal. However, you're giving it more referential information to work with. I have a structure of a project. It has directories. I have assets, image files, etc. I'm not looking to throw away how my interface looks. I'm just looking to fix how it flows from point A to point B, or maybe just change the text, which is a simple typographical thing, or maybe a global search and replace operation. So I don't think I want an LLM to global search and replace all my text fields without some check and balance, or you'll get a lot of confidently wrong replacements. I mean, that's the one thing about prompting is you get a lot of confidence coming back, but it can be confidently incorrect in places, and that's where the human in the loop matters.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add my own perspective here. I think this confidence thing is actually exactly right, especially when it's paired with a lack of understanding and expertise on the part of the developer. So if the only person who wrote the code is the LLM and you don't actually understand the code, then when it says it did X, Y, and Z, you have no way of knowing that that's true or false other than to just assume that they must have been right. And I think you probably had these experiences as well. There are plenty of cases where it says, absolutely, I did whatever you asked it to do. And in fact, it didn't, or it did half of it, or it did a third of it, or it did all of it, but the last step was the most important one, or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a good point. But so I just want to connect these two ideas for a minute, because we talked at the beginning about what it takes to get that idea, get some feedback on that idea. But I guess you would agree with the idea that we've lowered the bar for getting feedback on an idea. To your point, code some user interface, maybe some basic flows of an application, and getting feedback, like that's easier. But we've left, but that doesn't excuse you from the hard work of then, in our prior conversation, asking for money to the extent that someone actually wants to buy it. But I just want to make sure, check in that you would agree with that.
I'll give you some street creds here for a little bit, and then segue. What I think the impact to humans that do development today has been from this phenomenon is the world of entry level has kind of been squeezed, but the role of senior level and very experienced people that leverage this have magically come back to life. And that experiential piece is where the subject matter expertise lives. I've been working in medical instruments, for decades, and I know a lot of the nomenclature and inherently the pros and cons of things about that. Or I've been working in some other area. I'm a financial analyst, and I study these type of funds. And having those time in the chair understanding of the market and what you're doing is huge. So with that segue, I mean, people in the middle actually benefit from this automation more than the people in the early phase because they don't have the subject matter expertise. It's almost like, let's put you in a writer's workshop and ask you to write something, and you have the option of using a piece of paper, Google search, or choose your favorite GPT engine or that you'd like, or LLM engine to write it for you. And you have 5 minutes, write everything you can with your hand, and the other two methods, and you're gonna come up with 3 interesting cases. Now take that same writing, and the assignment's the same for all 3, and talk to those people 2 weeks later. And this is actually scientifically proven with some studies at MIT, where they actually go back and they do all the case studies and execution here. But the people that use the LLM couldn't remember what they wrote because, remember, they didn't write it.
They didn't write it. Exactly.
The next down the chain is the Google search, and then they transcribed it into a document. They had some recollection of it, but the person that wrote it with their hand, they totally understood what they wrote, and they could recite it and talk about it. So huge point about the subject matter expertise. So use your power tool where it makes sense, but if you don't understand your power tool, it's not going to help you when you don't have it available.
Sure, exactly. And again, we see this in vibe coding all the time. Again, personal experience with this, where the engine gets caught in so I always think of it like the Roomba, right? The Roomba gets caught in the corner, and then you have to go save it. I shouldn't pick on Roomba. The robot vacuum cleaner.
Well, which you can't buy anymore. If I look correctly in the new market, I don't think they were producing them.
That's right. It's been taken over. But in any case, so it gets caught in the corner, and we see this with the LLMs as well. And then if you don't understand the code base, then what's interesting, at least in my experience, has been that the kinds of mistakes it makes, the kinds of corners it get caught in, are not ones that are easy to navigate out of. If they were, then the LLM probably would figure it out. They're caught in some edge case, and the actual bug in the code can be, in a completely different spot. And if you don't understand the code base, you're almost certainly never going to get them out of that corner. So I want to shift a little bit here in the conversation. The other thing I hear from startups, and admittedly, this is a little bit of an antiquated perspective, but I want to get your perspective on it, is this idea of we're going to outsource the development effort. And let's just say they agreed that outsourcing it to an LLM is not going to get them there. But what we're going to do is we're going to outsource it to Eastern Europe, or we're going to outsource it to Latin America, or pick your favorite job shop, low, cheap, inexpensive development team. And that's our strategy. Like, we have the expertise as the founders. What we need is a job shop of, a large group of 50 or whatever developers at very low cost. Do you believe in this strategy? Does this make sense? Or what's the alternative?
Is this where I out myself and saying I'm working with multiple outsourced entities, and pick a country and probably I have an intersection into that country with, pretty good technical resources. I think the strategy isn't necessarily flawed. I think where people need to step back is, what are you going to do when the project is double air quoted complete, and how are you going to maintain it, take ownership of it, keep your intellectual property from crossing up with someone else's, and it's how does life go on when you want to enhance it. So it's okay to do that, and I do it today. So I'm not here to criticize. I don't replace subject matter expertise very easily, or lightly, I should say, in that just because you threw it over the wall to an outsourced company doesn't mean they have senior experienced people. So do your due diligence and understand what they've done, how they've done it, maybe even chat with their primary people, talk about their experience, and get a customer reference that paid.
Got it. And if you had to pick between 5 experienced people and 50 low-cost people, what would you pick?
Well,
Presumably they're
yeah, no, I'm all for the army of 5. I can do more damage with 5 really good people than 50 low cost people, because that low cost, it doesn't tell me anything about their experience and what they bring to the table and how you coordinate them and their time zones and all that fun stuff.
got it. Cool. So let's again loop back a little bit to the original problem, the zero to from idea to something moment. My sense of the early phases of startups is, it's not that they're all a disaster, or for that matter, all a success. It's that you don't have any idea whether you're in a success loop or a failure loop, meaning it's just very hard to understand if you're making progress or spinning your wheels. So, how do you know? Like, how do you know if this is working, not working? What's your view on that?
It's really simple. When the money comes out of my back pocket, do I see any of my return on investment coming anytime in the near future, or never? And when you're, if I think of my own portfolio today without outing every company name, I have 3 with revenue. I have 2 without revenue. One I've been with for over 2 years, got its first revenue this year. One I've been with for, about a year, and they have significant revenue. And then I have, a minor revenue case. And the first problem is, who's going to pay you, and evidence that they're going to pay you. And if no one pays you, did you even ask for compensation? Did you even ask for the value of this? And the first fear factor I have of one of my advisee companies is they're afraid to put it out there because and this is a huge mistake. I think they're afraid of failure. I'm going, you learn from failure. You built something and you don't want to put it out there to be judged. You're taking the hearsay that you feel it's not ready for that market, but you haven't gone to that market. And now you enter another market trying to then repeat the same problem, and you're going to build something for that market, but you haven't even tested if they'll, one, be able to pay for it, have the ability to pay for it. Let's take an example market. If you're going to jump into the educational market, and this is going to hit home, and I hope the right people hear this, but you have to understand the educational market. If you're selling into, public schools, private schools, K through 12, vocational training, or, collegial training, and who has discretionary funds to buy a software solution they've never tried? Think about that question. Pretty much none of them. None of them have discretionary money just sitting around waiting for somebody to walk up and say, hey, this is a cool thing. None. Zero. I'm putting it out there. And
Sure.
Unless you ask for money today, you cannot expect them to budget it until the next school year. And that's how long you have to weather it. So does that make sense? So you have a sales cycle problem. And that's a real epiphany if you enter a certain marketplace and they do seasonal buying or seasonal budgeting.
Yeah. So your cycle time at best, and under no circumstances, is less than 12 months.
Well, in some cases, yeah. And so, I did hold up this box earlier.
Sure.
Let me speak to this industry, how it was in that time frame. Financing was up pretty much 90 to 365 days for this stuff. So this is bought by the company that builds it, shipped. It's in the bike store, and no revenue. Maybe 90 days, maybe 180 days, maybe 365 days. That's kind of crazy financing if you think about it. That's a cost of funds and taking loans, and who can do that? So know the cost of money before you get into something.
Yeah. Well, what I love about that is in nowhere in that answer, in that conversation, was your development cycle time, the test failure rate, the whether you're using the coolest innovative technology, but you connect it straight to the most important metric, which is there an economic engine behind this that you can lean into? And I think, not to typecast you as a CTO, but you are twice over. The typical CTO is thinking about the technology. Does the technology work? Is it, have you built a high quality product? Is it using the coolest new innovative UI framework, whatever? And as opposed to, are people willing to pay for it? And is there an economic engine, to your point about financing, that sits behind it? So are there, so flipping it around for a moment. So those are the positive, look for cases where you're actually getting revenue traction. Are there red flags? Like when you bump into a founder or you're looking at a company, what are the biggest red flags? I hesitate to say.
Well, I think I may have indicated one of the biggest red flags is not recognizing the market you're entering in its finance cycle, right? So that's probably the first. If you understand that, then you know when to approach. That's huge. And then the next problem is, what are you approaching them with? And, how do you test that there is a need or an ability to build a solution for it? And you can get people to finance you to build something that you don't have, or you can try selling something that you have, but you're not sure there's a market. So you can come from both angles.
Yeah.
So the red flag for me is not acknowledging that you understand the finance cycle of that market and its customer.
Got it. Yep. I think that's very, very true. And again, like maybe to flip that around a little bit, it's if you're not talking about the finance cycle and the market and the customer, then you're probably talking about the technology, the infrastructure, the heaven forbid, the patents, or whatever it is, the technology, the core innovation, and that's I think a big red flag. Well, look, this has been hopefully for listeners super helpful. If you're thinking about a startup, I think the key lesson to take away from this is, talk to prospects. In fact, try to turn those prospects into paying customers. Try to turn the conversation from, is this interesting, into, would you pay for this? And then not overly relying on vibe coding or outsourcing, but rather getting a dedicated team that is smart and thoughtful on the business problem, empathy with the customer, and probably tightly tied rather to the sales process, and focus energy on building that muscle memory around the economic cycle of the business. Is that a fair way to summarize the approach?
I'll give you a 9.5 out of 10 for that.
Excellent. What's the 0.5?
Well, that's to be left for the readers and listeners to sort out with me.
Brilliant. All right.
That's how I make the big bucks.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for the time. And thanks.
I'm honored, and thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of the Data Masters podcast. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode.